All right, Connie, and if you would go ahead and bring up our PowerPoint, we'll begin. Thank you all. Thank you, Connie. Thank you all again for being here tonight for this grant management training that's going to take us into 24-25. There are some things that I know those of you that are here every year will recognize and you'll know about, but then there are some new things as well that we want to bring to your attention. So thank you for joining us tonight. If someone from your club was planning to attend and they could not be here, we are recording it and it will be posted on the district website within a short time. And Connie, if we can go ahead and begin with our slides, please. Our purpose tonight is to really understand the grant model. And tonight we're focusing on district grants, but clubs have to qualify in order to participate in either one or the other or both types of grants. We're going to talk a little bit about what that qualification means. There's a memorandum of understanding that your club needs to sign by your 23-24 club president and your 24-25 club president. There are terms and conditions to the grant, which Larry will be going through those, and then understanding the process of developing an acceptable grant project. So those are the topics we're going to touch on. And Connie, can we go forward, please? So club qualification, what does that mean? One of the things that we look at in our district is how supportive the club and its members have been of annual fund share. And we do a look back of the last 3 years to see if the club has been making contributions to annual fund share. So that's very important because that's where those dollars come from for us to support your club in a district grant. So it's important for the club to try to give to the annual fund share. We also need to see that there are 24-25 foundation goals in Rotary Club Central. Your president-elect will be hearing more about that. That at least one member completes grant training. So you're all here tonight, that's a good thing. Active participation in the project by Rotarians, update of a financial management plan, and I will speak more about that in just a couple of minutes. The club MOU, we talked about that being on file and who signs it, and then agreeing to the terms and conditions of participation. And again, that's a list, but you're going to hear more of the details of each one of those things as we go forward tonight. Connie, please. One of the things that I think everyone focuses on, and appropriately so, is that they want a very successful project. It's what everyone is working toward. But a successful process is really essential to remain in good standing for future participation in a district grant. Well, what does that mean? That means that before the project begins, there has to be planning, there has to be budgeting, there needs to be a committee put in place to oversee this project. And then once the project is beginning, there's the dispersing of funds. There's active Rotary participation that needs to be captured in pictures and videos. There's the obtaining and maintaining receipts for a period of 5 years. And then there is submitting timely reports. And I'll be honest, this is an area where we have struggled with several clubs in being able to get timely reports submitted. So when Larry talks about that tonight, that's really a critical piece to make sure that you're making those deadlines at your club with your project. So that project, that thing that gives everybody the sense of satisfaction, knowing that they made a difference for people in their local community, knowing that they've improved someone's life, whether it's a child, it's an adult, it's a senior, maybe it's another organization. those things are the things that tug at our heartstrings and help us to know that we've done something good in our community. But we also have to focus on the process. Did we do it right? Did we do the things before that needed to happen? Are we doing the wrap-up things that need to occur at the end? So we need to think in terms of the process for the project. Connie? One of the things that sometimes happens is a club does not use all of the funds that they received for their project. So there's really two areas I want you to focus on here. One is the second sentence, and the other is the last sentence. It is preferable, and this is Rotary's position, it is preferable to use any remaining funds in your district or in our district to fund additional grant-related activities. So I'm going to use Ray's example of the books that they're going to give to the students. If they had money left after that grant, it would be a good thing to use that money to buy additional books because it is a grant-related activity. So now let's jump down to the bottom sentence. Do not, please, send a check back to the district for remaining funds until you have talked to either Larry as the district grants chairperson or the district foundation chairperson. And here's why. Because if you have $1,000 or less remaining, we can give you approval at the district level to use those funds for grant-related activities that meet district grant eligibility. And if it's more than $1,000 that remains, then the district foundation chair has to call the regional grants officer at the foundation, talk about how the club wants to use these remaining dollars. She or he will ask for a letter from me spelling that all out, and then they typically give approval for it. We've not had one denied in recent years. So again, Rotary chooses to prefer that you use up these grant funds. So please do not send a check back to us, because then we have to deal with a check that has come back that potentially needs to be returned. We would much rather hear about it before we get a check, and we can talk through with you how you can utilize those dollars on a grant-related activity. And then if it's more than $1,000, then yes, we'll have to reach out to Rotary. So this is a little bit new, something a little different, but it allows us to use up all of those funds that have been dedicated or designated for district grants. Anybody with any question on that? I know this is new.
I have a question.
Sure.
Let's say our club, and this has happened, I know, you plan on a project and for some reason the whole project falls through. Okay, can the district, it says to fund additional grant-related activities. Can you then take the money at the district level and give it out to another club for a district grant that they already have that they could use more money for?
Theoretically, yes. But Eileen, we have not actually tried to do that. So if someone is thinking along those lines, I would want to have a conversation with our regional grants officer to make sure that we have all our T's crossed and our I's dotted. But theoretically, yes, you can do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other questions? All right, let's move on, Connie. Now, I mentioned the financial management plan. For those of you that were a part of a district grant in this Rotary year, you're good. You had to have an updated financial management plan last year in place before you could be approved for a grant. So you're good to go. There are 8 clubs that are attending tonight or next week that were not part of a grant last year. I suspect that you will need a financial management plan written, approved by whoever approves your policies and procedures, whether that's your board, it's an executive committee, it's your whole club, however you do that. But you will need to have a financial management plan in place before you can be approved for a district grant. Now, don't let that cause you stress, because we have a template that you can use. Some things are required by Rotary. Other things you have some flexibility in how your club might want to do it. And either this evening yet or tomorrow, I will be sending an email to any of you who probably need an updated or a new financial management plan. So you'll be hearing from me within the next 24 hours. And the thing that's important here is that it's just a set of best practices for managing the finances of a grant. Connie? Bank account management. We usually get some questions about this, and it's often, do we have to have a separate bank account for our district grant funds? And that's that first bullet. If you think that 3 or more checks will be written in the life of your district grant, then you do need to have a dedicated separate account. So you can't commingle it with other funds. The other one that I would point out is the second red entry. A lot of banks no longer require 2 signatories on checks, but the Rotary Foundation does. So we need to comply with that you have 2 signatories that are signing the checks that are being paid to pay invoices for your grant. And then those other things are things that we have talked about before. And Larry will talk a little bit more about some of those as he gets into the details. Connie? And we're ready to hand it over to Larry, but I'll pause just a minute and ask, are there any other questions that you'd like to pose at this point?
I have a question.
Sure.
What if we're paying using grant money and paying with a debit card? How do we do the 2 signature account that way?
That is a very good question. I think that the issue is if it's a paper check, it's where they want 2 signatories. So there's that double check that it's correct. It might be something that you want a second person to just take a look at when you're matching up your invoices and receipts to verify that that invoice and that receipt was a grant related activity.
Okay. And
Larry, do you have any other comment on that, Larry?
No.
Okay. And Christy, did you have something else?
yeah, the credit union has sub accounts under our main account. Is a sub account dedicated solely for grant money? Does that work, or does it have to be a completely separate, unrelated account?
Is it, when you get your sub account bank statement, is it only for your district grant funds coming in and funds being dispersed?
Yes, it's all broke down into separate in statements, separate everything.
Then I think you would be fine as long as your sub account can be dedicated to your grant project.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you.
You're welcome. Anyone else?
Yes.
Okay.
So my question was a little bit similar, but different. So we have our grants account totally separate, but it is at the same bank as our main club account. And are we able, with that 2 signature rule, we want to be able to just transfer money? So when the club makes the deposit, we want to transfer it over to the grants account to write the check, but that won't take 2 signatures as a transfer.
No, not as a transfer. And again, on your bank statement, we should see that deposit coming in from your operational account. But then any checks, any paper checks that you're writing is where you need the two signatories.
Okay, all right,
Okay,
great.
all
Yep.
right. Okay, Larry, I think we're ready to move over to you.
Okay, now for everything you didn't really want to know, but you're stuck listening to me tonight on district grants. Thank you, Cheryl, for highlighting all your information. And it looks like most of the clubs that are on this meeting tonight have participated in grants. I see some new names and faces, so we're going to treat this as if it's new to everybody. District grants, if you're not familiar with it, are funds that your club should be using to help you out. If you're doing a club project that's a $2,000 project and you're funding it all from your operating account, maybe it would qualify for a district grant and you don't have to input $1,000 and the district might give you $1,000. Or you could look at larger projects, and we'll go over that in a few minutes. So it's a way to leverage your funds, leverage your club funds, do something, have somebody else, have the district help you out with a project. Next slide. Where do the grants come from? Previous slide, Cheryl indicated the grants come from the annual fund share contributions. Again, we stress annual fund share. I say that because when you log into Rotary International's website and you're into My Rotary and you hit the donation button, I think I looked at it today and I think 4 boxes pop up. First one was AF share, annual fund share. Then there is a polio plus, there's a world fund, there's a disaster relief fund. So you need to check one of those if you're making a donation contribution. You always want, if you're doing it for the annual fund, you always want to click on the annual fund share, because that's the only fund that your contributions, all of our contributions to the district at the end of during the fiscal year are sent to Rotary International. Rotary International invests those for 3 years. And after 3 years, 50% of that total contribution comes back to the district for use. When it comes back to the district, the foundation committee assigns 50% of that to the district to use for grants, for projects we can use in our local communities. Great way to leverage funds again. Your contributions are coming back and you're using some other contributions from other clubs. I'm using some of yours for our club, so it works out. It's a great way to work at, but we again stress the fact annual fund share. I know a lot of people also contribute to Polio Plus. Great, we love that. We want to see that happen too. But those funds don't come back to us. Those go right straight to Polio Plus. So the only thing that comes back after 3 years is the annual fund share contributions. Next slide, please. Again, Cheryl alluded to planning ahead. It's a forward-thinking process. We need to sit here and think today. It's mid to late February, and the grant applications are due June 30th. So you need to be either looking at or have a grant or project in mind right now, or something you can come up with really quickly so you can get it to your club board or executive committee to get approval on it. So you know you have the funding and you're able to submit an application. We'll go over deadlines, application dates in a minute. So you're looking for a project that you can't start physically until after at least November 1st of this year. And absolutely no funds can be paid into the project or paid out for that project until after at least November 1st, and when you receive a final email from me saying that your project has final approval from Rotary International. Again, we'll get into that in the timing deadlines, dates coming up in a few minutes. So again, forward thinking. You need an application that you think you could start after November 1st, and ideally complete within 9 months of the date that you receive your first check from the district. Again, we do that because we want to see short-term projects, quick turnarounds, and gratification can be there right away. And I have to go on forever with a project. We understand some projects have hiccups. And this is a point where I'll mention that if you're considering a project that involves a local governmental entity, a city, a county, a township, rethink that project. if they're not impossible, those are the projects that we have the most problems with trying to get them done within a short time frame. So just think about that. If we need to talk about it, let me know. We'll talk about it. So our club, ever since I was club president umpteen years ago, first of the year, I start picking on our president-elect and saying, start thinking of a project that you want to support, you can back, and you be able to commit to the board that it makes sense, that we have the funds available that we can submit an application on. Think of that now. So he had 6 months to think about, well, 3 or 4 months to think about it so we get it to our board. So again, forward-thinking projects. We talked about the short-term nature, fit within the funding timing. Again, ideally within 9 months after you receive your first check for funding would be the ideal time to be able to complete a project. And it says refer to a district training summary. That is a 2-page document that will be attached to the district website when we send all the documents out within a couple of days here. So next slide, please. Types of grants, they're in a couple of different categories. The first is the community grants. Those are 3 types. We'll get into those in the next slide, but then there are international grants, including the vocational training. And again, these are dollar for dollar matches. So again, if you're coming to the district and asking us for a matching grant, you're putting in $1 for every dollar you're requesting from us. So if it's a $4,000, you've got a project that's going to be $8,000. Your club's committing $4,000. You can request up to $4,000 from the district. Now, if that project's a $10,000 project, then obviously the maximum the district is going to fund is $4,000. So either your club is committing to $6,000, or at least a minimum $4,000, and the other $2,000 is coming from someone else. You can't go out and say, we're raising $6,000 from other individuals. Your club has to commit that dollar for dollar match, the first $4,000. So next slide, we'll talk about the community grants. 3 types of community grants. We have new club projects. This is a project or projects that is absolutely new to your club. You've never done before. So if you've never done it before, you've never asked for any grant money from us before. So the minimum amount that we would fund is $500 for the maximum $4,000 maximum match. Again, dollar for dollar. So again, you want to do a $500 or $1,000 project, you're committing $500. You can request $500 from the district. It goes up to $4,000 maximum. If you have an existing club project, this is a project that you've done before, but you haven't come and asked for any money from the district before, you could ask for up to $2,000 maximum, $500 minimum. And we have what we call our repeat projects. Although Rotary International doesn't like, and we'll talk about that in a few slides from now, about repeat projects. As long as we can see repeat projects where we believe that the beneficiaries will be different from year to year, and you receive grants from that before, we can consider up to a maximum $1,000 match. And at the end of this presentation, I'll go over some projects that the district has funded for the last couple of fiscal years to give you an idea, if you're newer to this process, what's been done within the district. So next slide, please. Next slide. All right. I'm not going to go over these next 2 pages line by line, but these are the district grant fund activities that cannot be funded through a district matching grant. This comes directly from Rotary International. It's not from the district. It's not from the foundation committee. It's from Rotary International. I have a few of them highlighted in red because I want to address them because it can affect the number of clubs that have submitted grants in the past. But obviously, you don't want to discriminate against other groups, but D is provide continuous or excessive support to any one person, entity, or community. This is what we refer to about repeat projects. Rotary International doesn't want to see a project that's the same project year after year after year after year. And in our minds, the district minds, is that it does not support different beneficiaries. So if you're doing backpack for kids, typically that's addressed for certain grade levels. Dictionary projects are usually addressed to certain grade levels. So typically those students change from year to year. food pantries and baby pantries. Anyone can come in that qualifies for those types of things. So typically there are different people that come into those areas, but we don't want to see a project that is continuously is the same and same beneficiary from it and doesn't change. So next slide, please. Continuing on, item K, expenses that incurred or activities that are in progress or already completed before the grant is approved. Again, this gets back to my statement that you cannot start a project or expend any funds for that project before you receive the final approval from, in this case, me. I'll be the one sending you the final approval from Rotary National. Again, we'll be going over those timelines in a few screens here, but if I get reports in and I'm seeing expenses and bills that are invoiced in August and paid in September, and the project can't start until after you get approved in November, we're not going to allow it. So we're going to have a problem. And it's going to be some serious discussion going on. So keep that in mind. Don't start a project. Don't spend any money until after you get the final approval from me. M is just something we cover that so that we know that grants are not used for the purchase of land or buildings. R, years past, we've had projects that have come in that we had signage involved. A couple of them had boulders that were several tons and were engraved. And I'm pretty sure that those boulders and the engraving were excessively expensive, but RI has come out last year and said that they do not want to see projects that have signage that cost more than $1,000. So something to be to think about. T is unrestricted cash donations to a person or cooperating organization. What that identifies is we're not going to look at projects. You come in and say you're going to write a check to somebody to get this done. I'm going to write a check to the food pantry to buy something for that. We're going to come back and advise you to work with that food pantry, find out what your club can do, because you need to have Rotarian involvement, what your club can do to purchase those items for the pantry, and or when they come in, how can you stock the pantry, restock the pantry, something there. But you just can't sign a check and say, here, go buy the food for the pantry, or buy the books for the library, or buy the books for the school. So, okay, next slide, please. Winding down on the things we can't do, BB is just that we don't fund items that would be owned by a Rotary district, Rotary club, or a member. Again, this is something that it's common within Rotary that we have some clubs in the district that have Rotary parks. Some of those Rotary parks are actually owned by the Rotary club or their foundation or something. But if it's Rotary owned by the club or the district, it's something we just can't do. We can't fund that. So keep that in mind. Next
Larry?
slide, please. Yes.
Can I make a comment on the previous red item, the one about unrestricted donations to an organization? What Rotary doesn't want to see is that you are just giving this check to this organization without any guidance as to how that check should be used. And what they're mostly concerned about is they don't want us providing funds for a nonprofit organization to utilize in their operations, like paying their utility bill. So let's go back to Larry's example of the food pantry. If you say, yes, we're going to support this food pantry because it's very much needed in our community, and here's a check for $1,000 for the purchase of food. Now you put conditions on how that money's going to be used, and it's used for the beneficiaries. It's not used for the operational expenses of the organization. So just kind of bear that in mind, that that's what Rotary's really trying to drive down with that one that Larry was talking about, as well as the example that he gave.
Thank you, Cheryl. And another example of that is baby pantries. Again, if you're writing a check or funding, make sure it says this is to be used for the purchase of diapers, formula, or whatever you identify. Saying that, you're going to need to verify that when you obtain receipts, that those monies were used for the purchase of diapers, formula, or canned goods. So we need to make sure that you get those right receipts. Okay, next slide, please. Rotaract and Interact projects, we have yet to have one in our district that I'm aware of. I've been doing this for, I think I'm going on 5 or 6 years now, but just keep in mind that if you have a Rotaract or Interact club tied to your club, district grants are available for the Rotaract or Interact clubs under the same restrictions that we have here. The application needs to be submitted by the sponsoring Rotary club. So if your club has one and they want to do a project and you think it qualifies, they're going to submit the application, but it could be from your club. And you're going to be responsible for the reporting, funds management, and everything on that project. So we're going to hold you liable for obtaining receipts, getting the photos. They can get the photos and send them to you, send them to us. So it's part of the final report, but keep that in mind that your club's responsible for overseeing that project. Next slide. Paperwork, something we don't like. Matching grants from the district, again, maybe you're thinking it's a freebie. Well, to a degree, it's free money to match your money, but it's tied to some work. Not only is your club going to be doing the project, but there is some paperwork that needs to be done. Cheryl mentioned the financial management plan. If you have not updated your plan last year, you're going to need to get a new financial plan or a revision to your plan with a new revision date to Cheryl. So mail to email to Cheryl. Memorandum of understanding is something we get from clubs every year for that fiscal year. Again, it will be available on the district website. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And again, that is also mailed or emailed to Cheryl. District grant applications will be sent to me. Again, we'll have the grant application out there within the next couple of weeks at least. So we usually say by April, but it should be there in early March. So, and those district grant applications are due to me by June 30th. Hard deadline. There's no reason it can't be done by June 30th. So, and yes, we've had people up to 10, 11 o'clock at night emailing applications to me. So it has happened. I understand that. With the application.
Hey, Larry,
Yeah,
can I
yes.
clarify something? Make sure I'm clear. And Cheryl, this is actually comes to you probably. Financial management plan, as long as we have a current one on file with you, we don't have to redo that again this year or resend it. But the MOU we have to do every year, right?
That is exactly correct, Ray.
Okay.
I believe last year was the first year we had updates or revisions requested. I think the original financial management plans were done about 6, 7 years ago, or close to that. So if you didn't submit an updated one last year, you're probably gonna need one this year. So, and the MOU, we'll talk about that. The memorandum of understanding is signed by both your current club president and your president-elect, because it's going to be signed this year during the club president's tenure, and the project's going to be taking place during the tenure of your current president-elect. So the application, I don't have it here. It's too detailed. It's about a 6 or 7 page document, but on page 2 of the application at the top is the project proposal, and it's items 1 through 7 that ask questions for the project. That project proposal needs to be emailed to me in a Word document format. So the grant application is a Word document. If you want to complete that application form, move it into a PDF and send me that, you can do that. You can send me the Word document. But items 1 through 7, the project proposal, need to be done on a separate page in Word and submitted to me. Reason for that is I spent a lot of time entering this information into our district club runner website. And then once we get things approved, I have to transfer everything, move it into the Rotary International website. None of that happens automatically. So I do a lot of cut and pasting. And can I look at a PDF and pick it out and convert it to Word? I can. I did it last year for like 6 applications, but it took me a long time. It's time I don't have, and I shouldn't have to take if I'm asking to have it done this way. So we're asking to please send that items 1 through 7 in an email in a Word document format. So next slide, please. And what I will say is, if I get the grant application, I do a quick course of review and it's not there, I'm going to send you an email right away saying, thanks for the application. Oh, by the way, I don't have the proposal in the Word format, so we'll get that. So here's the big critical one to keep in mind now. District grants, the timeline for next fiscal year. The application forms will be available on the district website in April. As I mentioned, I've got them all done. They've been reviewed by me. They've been reviewed by Cheryl. We think we're ready to go with them. We're going to send them to the webmaster within the next day or two, so they should be up there soon. If for some reason one of you need one ASAP, just email me and I can send one to you, but it'll be available within the next couple of weeks. And that includes the application form for next fiscal year. There's a project report, and we'll talk about those in a few minutes. There's a project report checklist that itemizes everything needs to be included in the project, in the final report or project report. The sample memorandum of understandings in there, and the overview of the grant program is in there. So, and eventually we'll have this PowerPoint presentation will also be in the website for those people who have not been in training today. And I will say that if I didn't say it before, if you are not the chairperson for a proposed grant, thank you for being here, but highly advise and suggest that whoever you designate as a chairperson for the grant project review this PowerPoint presentation and ask me any questions that they need, because most confused people that I have responding to me are, I didn't know what was required. Oh, I didn't take the training. I didn't know all the documentation was required. I didn't know we needed receipts. I didn't know we needed photos. So keep all that in mind. Make sure that everyone knows what needs to be done on the grant application. So June 30 in red bold print. That's the date due for the completed application to me. You can mail them to me. My address is on the application. My email address is on the application. It says email the club acknowledging receipt. I tried to respond within 24 hours to any email that comes in with an application. I may not be able to review it all, but I do a cursory review to see that I have enough information to follow through on it. At that point, I will acknowledge, thanks for the application. Oh, by the way, I see this, and this are missing. As I get into the application in more detail, I may find more to communicate with you. But my communications, those emails are going to go to the project chairperson, to the club president, and to the assistant governor. So everyone knows what's going on. We keep communication open.
Larry?
Someone's going to, yes.
Larry, is it safe to say that if they don't receive an acknowledgement from you that you have received their application, that something has gone wrong in the transmission?
Yes, I didn't get to that. Thank you, Cheryl.
Okay.
So again, someone's probably going to ask, why don't you email it to the other two people on the committee? It's two more people and two more emails I have to look up and hand type into an email address that I don't think is necessary. I'm already communicating with a project chair, the club president, and assistant governor. I feel that's sufficient at this point. So, and as Cheryl mentioned, if you don't hear from me within 24 hours, please get back with me. Send me another email or call me. Verify that. Case in point, a week and a half ago, I received an email. I knew I have it. I knew it's out there. It's a final report for last fiscal year, one club's project. I knew it was out there. I looked at it. It looked complete. But I didn't acknowledge the club that I had it because, unfortunately, Cheryl and I spent a lot of time in some zone meetings on district grants, and on this project, on this presentation, on documentation. So she sent me an email yesterday asking me if I had it. So I sent an email back, said, sorry. I said, and she said, you usually email right away. And I said, thank you for following up, verifying, yes, I have the application. And yes, I did look at it and it looks complete. And I'll go and get in detail, see if it's everything we need to complete the report. So I'm human. I can make a mistake once in a while. So I apologize for that. August. So what happens when the applications come in? I review them for completeness and accuracy, making sure that the project looks acceptable, the budget looks acceptable. And again, when you're working on a budget, please remember that income needs to equal expenses. So if you have a $2,000 of income, $1,000 from your club, $1,000 from the district, you should have $2,000 in expenses. If you have more than that, someone else is making up that difference. It's either from your club or from some other group. And as Cheryl mentioned, if you have excess funds, don't send the final report to me with a check. We're going to need to talk about how you can spend those funds. So in August, applications are given to me in June, so I have a few weeks in July now to look at those and streamline them and get them entered into the system so we can all look at them at the committee level. August, the district committee or grants committee gets together and we look at trying to finalize what funds are available. By that time, we will know what our funds availability are for district grants from Rotary International. We select the grants we want to recommend to the foundation committee. Once they're selected, the list is done. I send another email out to all the parties, let them know that your grant has been selected for recommendation referral to the district foundation committee for final submission to Rotary International. And bold print on those emails, again, says, don't start the project until you get the final approval from me. So we make those decisions in August. September rolls around, we have a foundation committee meeting, present that list to them. There's usually a lot of discussion that goes on during that. And once we come up with a final group of grants to submit to Rotary International, after that meeting's done, again, I come back here and I start transferring everything to Rotary International's website for all the projects submitted to Rotary International. Now, we're at their leisure now to act on that. So used to be a month or two. They got back with us last year. I think it was 2 weeks where we got a approval on it. So the approval letter actually went out in October. So again, it's submitted to the foundation committee. And then next slide, please. And again, September, I said I submitted to Rotary National. Assuming everything's in place, they don't have a lot of questions. November 1st estimated date, they'll send me a notice, send a district a notice that a grant package is approved. And the district receives a final approval, and we then request the funding from Rotary National for the check to come back to us. Again, that's when I send the final email to the club saying, congratulations, your project was approved by Rotary National, final approval. You now can start spending money and start the project. And I typically will include project reports, final reports with that email. So you'll have that included in that email as a form for submitting your club financial information on your checking account to us so we know where the funds are going to go, what checking account they're going into. So November 15th-ish, again, initial distribution of grants. It takes Rotary National about a week to 10 days or 14 days to cut the check or email the transmit the funds to our account, and then the funds are available. So May 1, bold print, May 1, a progress report is due on all projects. Whether it's done or not, we need a progress report. Next slide, please. What's the district committee? What's the grant committee do in their review process? Again, we review the fact that all the club's requirements have been met, they're qualified for submitting the grant. Sometimes preference is given to humanitarian projects. We look at that. We do examine the club's 3-year history contributions to the Rotary Foundation. We look at recent grant activities by the club. We look at how have you handled prior grants? How have you handled prior reporting on prior grants? Consider past missing reporting deadlines by the club. This is going to be the first year that we're going to look at some clubs that have some past due reports that we may not want to submit a recommendation for funding. So keep that in mind. There are exceptions for new clubs without history. We have a couple of newer clubs in our district that don't have a 3-year history or 2-year history with us. So we don't want to leave them out. If they are looking for a project that they want to work with and submit a request, we will work with them and we'll talk it over with them and see what we can do. Next slide, please. Reporting requirements, the project progress report's due by May 1st next year. If it's not yet completed, if it's completed, the final report is due within 2 months of project completion. So if you're submitting a final report and you tell me that the project was done 9 months ago, I'm going to probably get back and just say, well, why have you waited 9 months to submit a final report? Because it's due 2 months after project completion. That final report, again, I encourage everyone to review the checklist requirements for submitting the final report. Not only the one-page final report completed in full, signed and dated, but we need a copy of the receipts for all your expenses. Now, again, we only need to document expenses that you are using your club funds and the district funds. So on a $4,000 project, if the district funds $4,000, you got $8,000 total. You should have at least $8,000 in receipts. If that project is $10,000 and you're funding the additional $2,000, I don't need receipts for $10,000. I only need at least $8,000 to cover all these the funds that we have. So keep that in mind. And participation documents, bank statements. Again, we need the bank statements verifying that the funds that the district sent to your club are deposited and how the checks have been transacted during the process of dispersing funds. So key thing here is photographs. One major line item in the district grant is Rotarian participation in the project. This oftentimes is, I think last year was about 4 projects. I had to get back with the clubs and find out what can they do to beef up and or include Rotarian participation, because we have to be able to document the Rotarians did something on that project, did something sustainable, and that made sense. And we take photographs so we can document that. If you're taking pictures of your club members, they have a Rotary shirt on, or you can identify them in a photo and send that to me, that'll work. But we need those photos. You know, we're done with the COVID years. We're done with that. So we had some projects that we didn't get photos on because we couldn't get members out there, but that's fine. That's over with now. So we need to have that included in the final report. Next slide, please. Some do's and don'ts, as I mentioned, please familiarize yourself with the reporting requirements before starting the project. Know what needs to be reported so you can start collecting that information right away as it comes in. So you don't find yourself struggling 6 months later to try and find something new, receipts that you spent 6 months prior on. So don't forget to take photos. Again, I just said we need photos of the project. We need photos of adult Rotarian, or not adult Rotarian, but Rotarians participating in that project. Biggest area that I have problems with in final reports is that the income does not equal the expenses. Last year, one was off a penny. I caught it, we fixed it, got back with them, and we were able to take care of it. So if it's off, I'll get back with somebody, whoever submitted the final report, and we'll figure out how to make it accurate. So next slide, please. And I mentioned you don't need to report all your receipts. This is a $2 million project, but it's exaggerated. But again, I wouldn't need a $2 million of receipts for expenses. All I need if it's a total of $8,000, if you're doing 4 and we're doing 4,000. So make sure your project is publicized if possible. A number of you are in smaller communities, still have the availability for small town papers. We don't have that here in Bay City. We don't have a local paper. It's hard to get anything publicized. So congratulations to you communities that have that availability, whether it's newspapers, newsletters, whatever. If you have that, take a picture of it, include it in your final report. Funding. I didn't talk about funding. What happens when I send you the final email that your project's been approved, and you submit the document on your club checking account information, you're qualified to receive the first 50% of the grant. Now, if your grant is $1,000 or less, we can disperse the full $1,000. If your grant is over $1,000, we will disperse the first 50% of that at the time you submit the document to me on your club checking account. The remaining 50% will be dispersed when we receive either the project status report on May 1st or the final report if that comes in quicker. Again, if your grant's over $1,000, you'll get 50% of it initially, and the remaining 50% comes when you submit the project report or the final report. If there is a financial situation with your club and it causes problems with your club, that's where you need to talk to me. Call me, email me, we'll communicate, we'll get on the phone, talk, we'll work this out. We'll find out what the situation is. I can confer with Cheryl, we'll work it out, see what can be done. We've helped some clubs in the past in that situation, so just so you know that. Next slide, please. Who to call, who to let know. This is Cheryl's information, my information. Andreas is a global grants chair and Connie's there. So like I said, the documentation should be on the district website within the next couple of weeks. We'll let club presidents know when it's available. Again, as I mentioned, if you're not the project chair, please have the project chair review this PowerPoint, and they should submit an email to Cheryl letting them know that they reviewed the PowerPoint, so we know that that's happened, and just so everyone needs to know what's required on the grant. So from here, we'll open to questions. Oh, before I do that, think about your questions. I told you I was going to give you some information. Sometimes people want to know what kind of grants were awarded in the past. So keep in mind, there are clubs out there that maybe want to do a grant with another club, a project with another club. In the last 2 or 3 years, I think that we have 3 or 4 projects where a project was combined with at least two clubs. We just had one this week. In fact, I went to it Monday, and it was a mental health first aid certification training that was done with the 2 Bay City clubs and combined. Now, when that happens, both clubs need to submit an application for their grant, their request. It's the identical budget. Everything else is pretty much identical except for the change in the club names. And when it comes to doing the reporting on this, the final report and or a progress report only needs to be submitted by the primary club. So one of those 2 clubs needs to be designated as the primary club. They're responsible for submitting it. So both clubs don't need to submit the final report or the project report. And we'll get credit to the other club for having submitted everything. So we had a mental health training. We had a literacy grant this past year. Christmas for needy families, youth hygiene, disc golf update, backpack program, which has been popular around the district, Legends, which is a home building for senior citizens, low-income senior citizens, baby pantries, a handicap ranch with an access ramp, zoo in the park. They have a Saturday for families to come and pet animals and have game prices and food and stuff. So it's great for the community. Preschool literacy, 1 school, 1 book. We heard a little bit if you're on earlier right away. Laker golf simulator. This is unique. Piece of equipment up in the thumb, and the equipment's being installed, and Rotarians will be going in and providing assistance and mentorship on this equipment for the school kids. So playground equipment, peace poles, library of books, apple dumpling adventure. That was last year, year before, just to highlight a couple more. We're almost wrapping up here. Benches at the YMCA, joint project, youth hygiene, again, we're both trying to, infant food pantry, pickleball court screens. Those pickleball court screens surrounded the pickleball courts, and they have the Rotary emblem on them, about 8 foot tall. So that was probably really neat. Park benches, a medicine project was a joint project in Beirut. So those are some ideas of projects that clubs have done around the area. If you want to know more about any of those projects, shoot me an email and we can talk about it. So from there, we'll open for questions, Cheryl.
Any questions for Larry? I don't have anything in the chat, but this would be the time.
It's probably time to wake everybody up first, so.
Cheryl, can that PowerPoint be emailed to us?
Sure, we can do that. It will be on the district website, Kevin, but I'd be happy
Oh.
to mail it to you.
Okay, if it's on the website, I can grab it from there.
Okay, now give it a few days to get there, but it will be posted there on the district's YouTube channel.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Larry,
Cheryl, this is,
what's happening with international district projects occasionally when they're international? What kind of club involvement are people doing? Like that Beirut project, what's the local club involvement?
They had club members over in Beirut that either assisted in dispersing. I mean, they can't disperse the drugs. The pharmacist has to disperse them, but they're doing some kind of work over there. I don't remember the details of the project.
You mean members of the club here went over there?
No, Rotary members over there.
Okay, so the local club that's getting the grant doesn't have to do the hands-on work.
There's nothing to do over here, so other than reporting,
Well,
so.
I know, but there's often nothing to do on local projects, but that's not acceptable. That's
Mhm.
why I'm pushing it.
We had,
Well,
we had another club that had books in Guatemala, I believe. And the same thing, the books were acquired by Rotarians over there. They were purchased, they were reviewed, and they were dispersed over in Guatemala by the Rotarians, so.
And I think the other thing that it's maybe not hands-on work as such, but the clubs here have contributed in terms of, well, what types of medications, and they've made recommendations and suggestions and that kind of thing. And provided, you know, oversight and recommendations on the project, even though they haven't been on site to put hands on the project. They've used, you know, their knowledge to help make sure that that was a good project and would achieve the results that were needed. So it's more of a, turns out to be more of a consultative type participation.
The budget and the Rotary participation are the two biggest areas that sometimes are short on the initial applications that we have to address and get back with the clubs and get those worked out a little bit, so.
Barb, I see your hand up. Barb Holland, you're muted. I see your hand up.
hi, Cheryl. I just wanted to let you know that albeit I was a little bit late trying to find the link, I did make it into the program today.
Okay, very good. We will make sure that you're on our attendance list.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I have added Deborah and Barb and Kevin to the listing that I provided at the beginning of the meeting.
All right, very good. Yes, Peggy. Peggy, you're muted. Peggy, you're muted. Peggy,
Sometimes
you
the
are
host can
muted. We
unmute them.
cannot hear you. Can
There
you unmute yourself? There you go.
Okay, sorry, I thought I did it. I also joined a few minutes late. I just wanted to make sure we got credit. I'm with the Mount Pleasant Rotary Club.
Right. We weren't seeing your face yet, but we saw your name. So
Okay.
we recorded that you were here. Thank you.
you.
Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you all very much for attending this evening. If you have questions as this process goes forward between now and the submission date on June 30th, please reach out to Larry. He will be more than happy to help you. And for those clubs who need a financial management plan, which would be if you were not part of the grant process last year, you probably are going to need a document called a financial management plan. And I will be sending you an email confirming that either later tonight or tomorrow. And again, it's not hard to do. It's not worth being stressed about. It's a basic best practices plan, and we do have a template for you to be able to use for your club. One last call for any question or comment.
Now, Cheryl, I think yourself, Larry, and Connie did a great job for doing this just for the first time, you know.
Well, thank you very much,
Because I
Ray.
know you've never done it before,
No,
right?
just for the first time, it's really anxiety producing.
Yes.
Just wait till next week, Ray.
Yeah, I know.
He's a rookie next week.
Yeah. So,
All right,
everybody
everyone.
have a great night.
Thanks so much for being with us tonight. Everybody have a good evening.
Thank
Good
you.
night.